Hi, everybody. It's the Plant-Based Business Hour. I'm Elysabeth Alfano. So happy to be with you here today. This is my first podcast since coming back from New York, Climate Week, and there's so many highlights to that Climate Week, but I think I will summarize them in two bits. Food systems transformation was everywhere. In the regenerative agriculture space, what that means is not monocropping, working in beans and legumes for better, healthier soil and better, healthier proteins for everyone. So who doesn't want to get on board with that? As well as just financing food systems transformation. So my work in finance, I found that very exciting. And perhaps my very favorite thing of being in Climate Week in New York City was chief economist at S&P, Paul Grunwald, said, you can only grow the economy until you reach a tipping point where you start cannibalizing your own natural resources. We've hit that tipping point, and I really appreciated that from him, because the fastest way to stabilize your natural resources is to mitigate the impact of the largest driver of biodiversity loss and deforestation, and that is our global food supply system based on animal agriculture. So really appreciate Paul Grunfeld, and little birdie told me that he might be on not this podcast, but the podcast that I do for the New York Stock Exchange, Upside and Impact Investing for Change. So stay tuned if you want to hear more from Paul, which I do. Actually, I find him great. But before we, switching over from the New York Climate Week to what we have at hand today, I'm so excited to talk about what I think is really the emerging product line for our sector. And that is what has been called before blended meat. So part diversified proteins and part meat. What we're going to call them today is really plant-rich meat. And this has a long history. So if you think of hot dogs, you think of, well, that's already like, who the heck knows what's in there, actually, quite frankly. And so there's already this concept that for either price reasons or functionality reasons, or maybe now sustainability reasons, you might have a blended product. So let's really dive into what that looks like, what it could be, and how soon it's going to be on our grocery store shelves. I want to bring in from Food System Innovations, Tim Dale. Thanks for being here. And Caroline Cotto from Nectar Research, which works in tandem with Food System Innovations. I want to see all that you have to share in terms of new stats and data on consumer preferences and their interest in blended meat. So first, let's start with Tim. Tim, just lay the groundwork, please. What is Food System Innovations?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having us. Food System Innovations is a philanthropic impact platform dedicated to accelerating the transition away from animal protein. So we do that through a variety of initiatives. We create, we fund, and we otherwise just support solutions that have substantial and, where possible, measurable results to move away from that, animal agriculture. We have two strategic tracks that we follow for our programmatic initiatives. The first one is addressing those underserved areas that we think have impact in the marketplace today. So that's where my role comes in as a category innovation director, focused on this plant-rich blended space. And then the other track is where Caroline and Nectar comes in, which is creating open source foundational resources that will empower and improve the efforts of other talented people thinking in this space.
Okay, so one informs the other. Nectar informs what you're doing at Food System Innovations. And Nectar is a recent initiative. Is that correct, Caroline?
Yeah, definitely. So we just launched in June, and we're sponsored by Food System Innovations. So we're really focused on accelerating the protein transition with taste, and we're doing that in three main ways. So the first way is by learning how products in the space taste today through really large-scale blind sensory tests, and then operationalizing that data to support brands and help them improve their products or bring new products to market. And then lastly, we're using the data to celebrate really great tasting products and be able to point key stakeholders in the space like retail buyers and food service buyers and investors towards the best tasting products and really elevate them. and then set a new high watermark for the industry in each of those plant-based categories.
Okay, so I just want to take a step back, make sure that all the listeners are getting this. So what we are talking about is adding meat into plant-based products, or are we talking about, and there's sort of one and the same, but it's also sort of different, or are we talking about adding plants into meat products?
It's a great question.
Sorry, I'll start with Caroline, and then maybe we'll start with Tim, because he's really on the innovation side.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think inherently this space falls within that gray space of 100% animal meat versus 100% plant-based meat. So we have seen a variety of different formulations enter in the market, some that are more meat forward and some that are more plant-based ingredient forward. At FSI, we're defining plant-rich blended meat as meat products that feature animal protein and combine it with a significant percentage of plant-based ingredients to deliver that improved nutritional benefits and reduced environmental impacts while preserving or even enhancing the flavor of conventional meat. So I think it could be both.
Okay, fair enough. But I just kind of want to dive into this. Both of you can answer, but maybe again, I'll start with Tim. Haven't we already had this for a while? But the meat industry didn't want to let consumers know because it looked like they were maybe skimping on what the consumer thought they were getting. So there was already X amount of filler that is allowed by law, filler being, I'm not even sure what, but often it wasn't animal. And that amount of filler is, if you're under the threshold, you get to pass that through to the consumer. Hasn't that been going on for a while? But now the marketing has shifted to be like, oh, look at us. Maybe we're more environmental because we've been putting in filler for a while. Help me with that.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I think this blended product is nothing new necessarily. And there are things that people might not even realize out there that do have other ingredients in there to mix in with the animal protein. I think where this category is different and where we want to shift it is both the percentage of plant-based ingredient included and also the intent behind including those plant-based ingredients. So we want to make sure that there is a significant percentage, something that is intentional and moves towards a more sustainable food system. So those cost-cutting measures and extenders that have received consumer backlash in the past is something that we're definitely going to want to help steward this category and steer away from, and make sure that the products that are meeting those thresholds are not perceived in that light. And then at the same time, we don't want to just increase the amount of plant-based ingredients for cost-cutting purposes solely. We want to make sure that those are adding nutritional benefits and they are enhancing the product rather than making it cheaper in the eyes of the consumer.
And
yeah, go ahead. Caroline.
Yeah, I want to add. So where Nectar kind of came into this conversation is that we just did a large blind taste test of these blended products called Taste of the Industry. And we looked at 22 products across 9 categories and also asked consumers conceptual questions about plant-rich meat. And we saw, to your point of like, is this new or not? People are much more comfortable with categories that they've like historically seen as blended, things like meatballs and sausages. But when you start introducing the concept of a blended steak, that's where things kind of break for them. They're like, what do you mean we could have a steak that's, you know, a certain percentage plant-based and like 10% beef tallow, right? Like that just is a much more novel concept. And we're seeing that the products that were historically blended are also often performing higher in to taste and overall satisfaction for consumers. So I think there's some connect there between the familiarity and then the sensory outcomes.
Yeah, I love this. And I want to dive into the stats and data from that study in just a minute. But not to be flippant, but do we need to even address steak right now? Like if we just addressed meatballs and deli slices and hamburgers and sausages, I mean, you'd already be making a significant difference in environmental impact as well as maybe consumer health and maybe the bottom line of the meat companies. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were trying to understand like where are efforts happening today and where do we need to put the gas on the fire, so to speak. We tested the most number of burger products. That's definitely a category that's furthest along. And if we can get burger companies to reduce 50% of the meat in the burger patties, that's a great start. And we would love to continue amplifying those efforts. But I think we were trying to surface like where else might there be opportunities that we have not tapped before to reduce meat and increase plant-based inclusion rates and still not see a drop in satisfaction for consumers.
Yeah.
Right. What? Go ahead, Tim.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, if I could add on to that too, I think at FSI we're really into an approach of yes and as it comes to climate innovation. So while yes, burgers there's a lot more work being done in that space. If someone is so inspired to attempt to do this in steak, I think that's something that we want to support as well.
Yeah, interesting. I see the sector as having some hurdles, and I'd like it to log in some successes under its belt, and it has already, to be clear. Let's not follow the meat lobby's press releases. It has logged many successes already. You just think of, you walk into a restaurant, you never used to see options that were non-animal, and now you have at least one or two. So, these are increasing in food services, university cafeterias, corporate cafeterias around the US, and also in restaurants. So large progress has been made, but I'd love to see sort of the slam dunk of what's already acceptable come to the market quickly. So when will we see this come to market? I think this is a Tim question, but it could be a Caroline question. When will we see this come to market, and what will the retail price be, or how is it going to shake out for the consumer in that perspective?
Yeah, there are already brands that are in market today in retail and in food service locations. So this is something that exists already, which is great news. And I think when we think about some of the barriers that have been slowing down the adoption for other alternatives, mainly price, taste, and health benefits, we see that this plant-rich category has the opportunity to overcome those barriers and even sometimes do better than the animal analog. So anecdotally, we've worked with some of our brands in this space, and we've heard that on a unit economic level, they are able to price it below the animal analog. And we see that also in Europe as well, where white label brands for Tesco and Lidl are coming significantly under the 100% animal version.
The Good Food Institute always says it's taste, price, and convenience. But as I mentioned on this show, I actually often think it's just price, price, and price. And when you can attract people with price, they'll say, oh, sure, I've always loved mixing mushrooms with my meat. I do that anyway on my plate. So I just love that blended product. But you got them there because of the price. So I just think this makes so much sense. Caroline, back to you. I know you've done the Nectar research, which is great, and you're looking at consumer opinions, consumer willingness to adopt, et cetera. Tell me exactly, you touched on it before, but I want to go deeper dive, what their reaction was, what maybe the hurdles are, and your opinion, if you really care about the consumer as much as you care about the producer. How does the meat industry feel about this?
Yeah. All great questions. So overall, most people are really excited, in that's what our research shows. So we saw 74% of those surveyed said they were interested or extremely interested in the concept of plant-rich meat, which is already a great baseline to start with. I think we saw an increased interest from people who identify as omnivores, even over flexitarians. And so it's really opening up a potential for a new market to really get those people that consider themselves at their core to be meat eaters, because it's really a solution where they don't have to sacrifice 100%, and they can kind of have their meat and eat it too, for all puns intended. We definitely saw that there was a clear conceptual preference as well for 50% blends. So 50% meat, 50% plant-based. I think just it's really easy to grasp what that is. And then they also want that 50% that's plant-based to be often whole plant-based ingredients that they can recognize the name of right on the label. So things like mushrooms or broccoli or caramelized onions, they can conceptualize that versus something like mycelium or some soy protein isolate. So overall, super cool to see. We actually saw burgers and nuggets, the plant-rich versions, were outperforming the 100% animal-based products in overall liking. And that was often because the burgers actually had more juiciness and they had more beef and savory flavors coming through that's amplified by the umami of things like mushrooms in that blended product. They also were reported as having a more natural look and kind of just appearing more delicious on the plate. And same with chicken nuggets, they were able to prioritize more sort of savory chicken flavors and avoid a lot of weird aftertaste that consumers felt was in the animal product. So, and overall, we saw plant-rich products outperforming 100% plant-based products in 6 of 8 categories. So definitely some indication that omnivore consumers are willing to take that step to a middle ground, but maybe not willing to go 100% to the plant-based side. In terms of the meat industry's interest here, I think we're seeing they're not, at least so far, very threatened because the meat is still part of the recipe. So they're still making sales of meat, consumers are still eating it, and they can just sell more meat to a new group of companies that are really driving innovation forward.
Yeah, it's only a win-win for the meat sector, really, because there's such a health halo by doing this. And their product has suffered from perhaps a health negative halo. So here they can correct that by still maintaining their core business. And it just seems that if the price is the same, and so there's no hesitation for adoption, the marketing is just someone's dream. I mean, caramelized onions, mushrooms, and steak. Wow, how could you go wrong? How could you go wrong?
And that health aspect is definitely borne out in the research as well. Consumers are interested in these products because they see perceived health benefits like reduced cholesterol, reduced saturated fat, increase in vitamins, increase in protein. So definitely encouraging companies in this space to lean into that in their marketing messaging.
And is that their perception, or is that actually true? I mean, I would stance to logic, it should be true, but is the nutritional panel better?
We didn't test the actual nutritional panels in the research, but so that was conceptually they're perceiving these products to be healthier. But we do think that adding more fiber from vegetables will increase the nutritional labels of these products.
Yeah. One thing that's really interesting that we've seen in consumer insights so far is the concept of balance. And that's definitely what you get with the nutritional fact panels of these products versus let's say just a fully animal product where, you get introduced the fiber, there's less cholesterol, and there's a lot of good things and a few bad things removed.
Great. So win-win-win. Who have you been working with to bring this to reality?
Yeah.
Tim, can you mention the plant-based brands? And Caroline, can you mention who you're working with?
Sure. Yeah. So we've been working with a lot of the founding, startups in the space. So Fable Foods, Phil's Finest, 50/50 Food Inc., other brands, lots of other brands, Choppy. So there's a lot to mention there, as well as some of the other cross-functional partners just in the space, the thought partners of other nonprofits, think tanks, et cetera, to try to help define the space and make sure that we're all aligned with this and strategize ways to continue to accelerate it.
Yeah, I would emphasize too, and on the Nectar side, we're working with a company called Palate Insights to actually conduct the sensory tests. And they historically have focused on plant-based products. So it's been interesting to co-create this research on this emerging category with them.
Yeah, that's great. I feel compelled to do a shout out to Fable Foods. Oh, I would love their product. And I happen to like their 100% just out of mushrooms steak tips. I've had their tacos at New York Climate Week. I mean, anytime I can get my hands on Fable Foods, I'm just so gosh darn happy. So I feel like I need to do a shout out to them. Then I have to do a shout out to Paul Shapiro, the Better Meat Company. They've been on this blended train, if you will, since their inception. Their whole business model is they make the blended components for the meat companies. They work with companies like Hormel, et cetera, to work on blended products together, and they are supplying the non-animal blend. So already kind of way ahead of the game, but I think we're going to see more of these blended products to come for all the reasons we're expressing. Less of a hurdle for the consumer, less of a price challenge, less of a meat industry hesitation. And in time, maybe we'll see, cultivated meat, or excuse me, cultivated fat. So animal fat that's been cultivated, and maybe that's an animal portion, just the fat part that's blended with mushrooms, et cetera, to give the consumers more choice. I mean, this is what I love, a little tangent here. You think about the classic potato chip. Like, what would you ever do to the potato chip to make it better? It's a potato fried in oil with salt. It's perfect. Except they can be baked, they can be fried, they can be square, they can be triangle, they can be blue, they can be yellow, they can be corn, they can be pita, they can be veggie chip, they can be sun chips, whatever that is. We don't even know. But there's a sun chip. They can be in a bag, they can be in a can. So you see how much consumers, even for beloved products, want choice. And I think it's going to be very interesting. Right now, you're starting with 50-50. But in time, I think it'll be very interesting to see if it's 80% plants and 20% cultivated fat, or 80% meat and just 20% mushrooms. Or I just think there's a lot of upside for the consumer here.
Totally. I agree. And I think what the end goal would be, in an ideal world, to actually entirely replace the conventional animal part of the blend with something like a cultivated meat. And so we've moved people to a point where they're like comfortable with the blend, and then we're transitioning that animal reliance completely away from the products. But yeah, I think Tim and I and FSI really see this as sort of like the hybrid car solution of the plant-based meat space, where we need some more transitional technologies to really move people towards the middle and away from the two sort of binary sides of this conversation.
What I like so much about this is its reasonability. So I think it's very hard to expect people to go black and white, switch 100% from one day to the next. And it's much easier for people to wrap their mind around things in stages. By now, most people have heard there's some environmental impact with animal agriculture, and they know it's out there. I work in the investment space. Younger investors really know this. But still, people wrap their minds around, what can I do about it? So there's a problem with my food. Where else do I go? What else do I buy? What else do I know? What else do I recognize? This gives them an easy step. Again, if the price is lower and the health panel's better, it's just an easy access intro. So I really like it for its reasonability. That said, I'm sure it's not all like unicorns and rainbows. Maybe, Caroline, you can tell me, what are some of the hurdles we're seeing here?
Yeah, as Tim alluded to, most of the development being done in this space right now is by small startups who are facing similar challenges to all food startups at this point in time, with funding and being able to scale. We're also seeing in the research that the average plant-rich product, so not a product we identified as a leader, but the averages are still quite a bit behind. And so additional R&D is really needed to bring those up and make sure that sort of the average product in each category is still outperforming the 100% animal-based product. And that will take more funding as well. So we're encouraging all of the companies in this space to lean in, because we don't want them to fall prey to some of the pitfalls that early plant-based brands fell into in going to market too quickly with a product that wasn't ready for mainstream adoption.
Tim, anything to add there?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think as I think about some of the challenges in this space, I think one thing that we talked about earlier in this call was how companies historically have used some plant-based ingredients as fillers or cost-saving measures. I think that is a seeded consumer feeling potentially, and a perception that we're going to need to overcome and figure out, how do we position this category generally to make sure that this plant-based ingredient is seen as additive and beneficial and something that you want to seek out. And I think on the flip side, there is a potential for greenwashing and under this plant-rich moniker, where we know that sustainability is becoming an increasingly important element for purchase consideration. And we also know that consumers are becoming more sensitive to sustainability claims. We've seen lawsuits recently where claims have been seen as unfounded. So we want to make sure that anyone that is claiming to be a part of this category and using sustainability claims to market it as such, that they are making genuine efforts to curb their animal protein and reduce their emissions of their products.
Something that I would like to see from an advertising perspective is, you ask anyone what's in a chicken nugget. Some don't even know it's chicken, like the young kids in school. They're just like, I don't know. It looks maybe corn. It's orange, so it's orange yellow. Like, and then you ask an adult, like, what's in that chicken nugget? And they're like, I'm not really sure. I'd love to see the ad that says, what's in your chicken nugget? Nobody knows the answer. Well, now you know. It's mushrooms. It's, what's in that chicken nugget. Now we know. And now we're not afraid to tell people, or we're not shy to tell people, or we're proud to tell people. What's the filler? I don't know. I think there's something there, because a chicken nugget can be a very scary food. Like, what the fuck's in that food?
No, I think, and we're seeing a lot of the companies that are already in the market, they're really leaning into exactly what you just said. We're saying it's a chicken nugget mixed with cauliflower, like being super transparent exactly what is included and what's not. Or like shiitake infused burger, like that marketing is really resonating with consumers because you're building that trust with them.
But I do feel here like what's old is new again. I remember, I want to say it was 2020, maybe 2021. No, it was 2020, maybe even 2019. Tyson came out with a blended chicken nugget that was half veggies and half chicken. And their slogan at the time, which I thought was pretty smart, hey, moms, now you can get your kids to eat your veggies and they don't have to know, or something like that. Something like, your job is now done. You've gotten your kids to eat your veggies. Well done, you. And I thought that was brilliant, but they didn't stick with it. Are you going to see companies like Tyson come back to the playing ground? And just side note, anyone and someone like Tyson really needs it. They've just recently been sued for greenwashing, that their products don't have the sustainability halo that they've been purporting. So they could take it in a different direction. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good example. I think there are a lot of different jobs to be done, if you will, for what these products can do. So there is that stealth health, as we refer to it, for parents serving these products to children. And then there, on the other end, there's the really just flavor enhancing with the shiitake mushroom infused burgers. And then there are other ways where, you might be reaching for someone that is just looking to reduce their red meat intake for health reasons or something like that. So I think there is a wide variety of ways that products can enter this market. And I think that the trend line is such that this is going to be more and more important. So I think these brands are going to come back if they have fallen off shelf already. I think there are incentives on the company side, both from the sustainability aspect to what we were talking about earlier with some of that profit margin incentives. And then as consumer demand picks up and this becomes a more known product and category that will start being something that people are seeking out, I think we'll see more and more blended products converge here.
And we are already seeing this in the last few months. So Nestle, largest food company in the world, launched a blend. It's not an actual blended product in its entirety, but it's a ingredient that is intended to be blended with meat in Chile. So I think they launched that earlier this summer. We'll see how market adoption goes there. And then we're seeing some of the products that we worked with in our study are actually being sold at Disneyland. So like super mainstream adoption for these products with Americans. And they're labeling it as beef and vegetable burger. So just being really, really transparent again about like what it is. And they're seeing great results from that, which is super exciting.
Yeah, I think that's really exciting. We come back to price. So lowering that price for the consumer through large scale adoption of the meat industry, I think it's really great. I'm sure it's not as easy as all that, though. We've been talking about it like, oh, just do it, just blend those mushrooms in. There won't be a technical problem anywhere. I'm sure that's not exactly true. Are there any tech hurdles, or is this a relatively easy play, technology speaking?
Yeah, I think it depends. If we're talking about integration with some of the larger meat companies like Cargill or Tyson, there's going to be some sort of necessary, I guess, innovation to make sure that these plant-based ingredients fit within their existing infrastructure so that they are able to be blended in. They have the right moisture content. They are the right particle size. They are frozen or dried in the correct ways that can be that can fit with how their products are already made. So there is some sort of intermediate step from just taking these plant-based ingredients and then putting them into our meat, especially when we're talking about that industrialized scale.
Yeah.
But I think the exciting thing is that it's a solution we can implement today. It's not going to take like millions of dollars and 10 years in the future to start creating these products. It's like we have the existing technology to do that, which is really,
Yes.
Something why we're pushing this as a solution we should be moving forward with and quickly.
Exactly. And yeah, to your point, Caroline, I think it's something that you can make at home too. So your meatloaf, your meatball, that is a blended product. So if you cut down on your own meat intake by mixing in veggies in your own way, that's doing the same thing.
Yeah, I love this. It's something that can be implemented now, and the technology is really not that difficult. So it's sort of, if the large meat companies get in, then they've got the funding for R&D. Do the smaller players, are they getting the funding for this? Or is that a hurdle?
I think it is a hurdle. It's a tough fundraising environment these days, especially for food companies and people in this alternative protein space. So I know that is always something that we are harping on and trying to bring more investment to the space. I think it's an interesting thing to consider, especially for these. One thing that gives me hope and one thing I'm interested in for plant-based companies, I'm curious to see if launching some of these blended products, because we know that there are increased demands for them, if it offers a new revenue stream to help with some of the other R&D and cash flow issues that there may or may not be.
Yeah, just to build on that, I mean, anecdotally, again, from some of the companies in our research, we've seen a 10x higher velocity for plant-rich products in the same grocery store over 100% plant-based products. And I think that's a really promising way to say you can actually, the unit economics on these products are really good. You can make money and use that to fuel further innovation and marketing.
So that's a really impressive stat. I just want to make sure that I understand it. Was it in one grocery store? What were the brands and what were the prices? Just so that I know if we're comparing apples to apples. Were the products meat and blended the same price? Was one lower? Was it regionally? Was it a test? Give me more details, please.
Yeah, definitely more of a pilot scale, and we would have to double tap on the company for all of the details. But it's the same. So they sell 100% plant-based product and a blended product. The blended product is positioned in the meat set next to the meat, and the plant-based product is positioned in the plant set. They sell, about 5 units a week of the plant-based product, which is great for that category. And then for the blended product, they were selling closer to 50 units a week. Wow. And that is at price parity with the meat product. I'm not sure about the price of the plant-based product 100%.
And where was this?
Australia.
That's what I thought. Okay, so not the US, Australia. I can guess the brand, but I won't say it because you guys haven't said it. If you want to say it, say it. If you don't, it's okay.
We'll let them tell that story.
Yeah, we'll let them tell that story, right? Well, they are welcome on the show anytime. I love them. I know them. That's wonderful. Okay, so we're kind of wrapping up here. What are we excited about? What are we looking for next? What are next steps here?
Yeah, for me, I'm just going to continue to collaborate and do some foundational research. So like I mentioned before, we're working collaboratively with stakeholders in the industry, as well as some other think tanks and thought leaders there, to help define this space and strategize on the protective measures to make sure that some of those downsides that we've mentioned before don't come to fruition. We're launching large-scale consumer surveys and studies to understand what the drivers and the barriers would be and how they differ from existing products in the market. And then we're also launching in-market experiments to be able to track those differences between the say and the do behaviors between consumers on as it relates to these products.
So I just want to jump in there before Caroline goes. What he's saying there when he says between the say and the do, everybody says they want to be healthier. And then everybody runs for the birthday cake, ice cream, and burgers. So, what people say in a survey and what they do at the grocery store are two different things, particularly when a lower price is involved. So there's the aspirational, the eater we all want to be, and then there's the real eater that we are, myself included. So just shortening that understanding between those two is really great. So shout out to Food System Innovations for doing that. Caroline, what are you excited about?
Yeah, for our part, so we just launched this report on plant-rich meat last week. It's a 215-page report full of sensory insights on how to create the best tasting blended product in all of these 9 categories. So we're working with the brands themselves to implement some of these sensory changes, and then also helping brands who want to get into this space figure out how to start with launching these products. And then we are really focused on taste at large. So we're going to be recruiting more 100% plant-based products for blind taste tests this fall. So if there are listeners out there that have great tasting products, we'd love to see them as we continue to socialize both of these 2 options that will get us to a better plant-based future.
And how can people get the study if they want to read it, see it, etc.?
Yep, you can head over to nectar.org/future, and it's free to download the entire report there.
Okay, that's awesome. A couple quick extra questions before I let you guys get on with your day. I'm starting with Tim, then Caroline. It's just going to go like that. Tim, Caroline, Tim, Caroline, Tim, Caroline. What do you wish you knew 10 years ago that you know now?
Oh, interesting.
You can make it 5 if you want to.
Yeah, I think fail fast. I think don't tweezer things before you put them out into market. Just the best way to learn is to get it out there, fail, and adjust.
Okay.
And I think I knew this 10 years ago, but it really hits home that the most powerful thing in the world to me is the story, and you are in charge of your own story. So just making sure that you do everything you can to maintain that and be true to your narrative.
Yeah, I certainly feel that because the press will do what the press will do. And once that monster's out of the bag, it's really hard to continue to own your own story. So yeah, be very loud and proud early on about your story. Love that. Okay, it's a bad day. Things aren't going the way you would like. Tim, what is the phrase you tell yourself to get yourself back in the groove?
Oh, that's a tough one. Let's see. I think, oh boy. I guess the one thing I've said to myself many times is the only way through it is just to do it. And I think that's something that my parents would say. And I think it's just, just get the ball rolling, just start.
Just start. I love it. Just do it. Okay. Caroline?
I have a very strong mother and a sister, and on our bad days, she used to say, "No wimpy chicks." And so I think that's about myself. Like, okay, pick yourself up, you're going to get through it, but no wimpy chicks.
I want that t-shirt. No wimpy chicks. That's pretty awesome. Okay. Same bad day. Things aren't going your way. You had no time for lunch. What is your go-to snack?
Oof. Impossible chicken nuggets in the air fryer. I eat so many of them. It's, an embarrassing amount.
I love this, Caroline.
I actually had that for lunch today. So I would say I'm a big Mary's Gone Crackers fan. So Mary Gone Crackers and hummus is a go-to for me.
Oh, Mary's Gone Crackers. Oh my gosh. Shout out to Mary's Gone Crackers. I love anything from Beyond Meat. I haven't had Impossible in a while, but shout out to them. And I'll go for your standard, apple and peanut butter, just crunchy. I mean, I draw the line at something. It's red delicious apple, and crunchy peanut butter. That would be my go-to if it's not popcorn. So there you have it, everybody. side note, popcorn and olive oil and nutritional yeast and salt. Yeah, you're really happy, really, really happy. I want to thank my guests, Caroline Cotto of Nectar Research and Tim Dale from Food System Innovations. Thank you guys for all you do. Thank you for bringing us this rockstar news. I think we've got an election coming up. We've got a war that we're still in, and we just keep adding to the war list of how many wars we have. We still have inflation out there. I do believe in 2025, it's all going to settle down, and it's really going to be the year of food systems innovation. So let's just see where we go with that. Everybody, stay put. Caroline, Tim, don't go anywhere. But Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. I will see you all next week. Bye, everybody.
Thank you
so much.